Whoa, we're back with some Bleach Soul Resonance, and I did want to come back in and talk about Okieda and White Ichigo. I guess you could call him Zangetsu, right? The original, like, Hollow Zangetsu or what have you, if you really wanted to. I'm going to continue to call him White Ichigo, just because I feel like when I say Zangetsu, people have that sort of young Yuha look in their heads about who that is, and instead of having to, like, delineate, we'll just continue to call him White Ichigo. So, I want to talk about these characters because we are, of course, getting what is essentially a DPS, a DPS, and a sub-DPS all in a very short time. And for your free-to-play, returning, or new players, which the game should see some amount of because this is going to be half anniversary and post half anniversary, as well as we're supposedly going to be out of the low hype dregs. The devs themselves said that they had to add in these lower hype celebrations because of Shueisha's probing. They were told to add in characters like Zealaparo. They were told to add in characters like Mayuri and Soifon first, and then they could get to the hype. For what reason? We don't know. Wink, 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 wink. Whoa, what could it be? But the game still managed to do pretty well in spite of that. Now that we're getting the hype, now that we're getting to 3 meaningful characters in a row, you as a new player might have some questions. Should we go with, like, should I be skipping Grimjo? I mean, I'm seeing so many people be like, oh my god, it's time to skip Grimjo because they're putting in Okieda now. Let me just say something. Let me just say one thing. We should be getting a lot of pulls. We should be getting a lot of pulls. If you get even slightly lucky, this is what your Jade ends up looking like. Now, let's be clear. I asked my community, and I'm going to always repeat this. I asked my community, hey, should I get the 30-day card? That way I can keep up with B0, B1, B2 releases and be able to do showcases. They said yes. So let's fairly say that we're going to subtract 6,000 Jade from my total right now. Let's say we're going to subtract 6,000. We should really only be subtracting like about 3,000 or so. But let's say we're going to subtract 6,000 Jade from my total right now. That would still leave me with 20,000 Jade because I got even slightly lucky. If you get even slightly lucky when you pull for characters in this game, your Jade balloons. And that's because typically we're getting enough to pull the character and maybe even their weapon stamp every single time they bring a character out. So long as you're doing the content. So long as you are participating, playing the game, you will get the characters. That is Bleach Soul Resonance. To the people saying they need to add rewards here, they need to add Jade here, you're crazy. I was going to say something a little more like ridiculous than that. I was going to be a little more flagrant, but you're smoking something. I'll say that. Like you're on something because there is so much in this game that is rewarding so long as you're actually doing the content. So long as you press this button here and do the things they want you to do. Right? As long as you click here and do the things that they want you to do. They added 1,800 Jade to an event to cap off this one, right? I would say that the game really doesn't need to explode with more Jade or anything. Every single time you pull a character early, your Jade just explodes. And mind you, this is minus 6,000 points. Mind you, Soifon is B1. But that takes us to our point. Let's go back to our initial one. Okieda and White Ichigo release dates and info. White Ichigo will be on June 5th. Okieda will be on June 26th. Supposedly start off in Resurrection, most likely transforms into Segunda Etapa. Flash Tactic SSR, Spirit DPS SSR. Now, come in here. We're going to be talking about the girl again. Yeah, we have to. And in fact, we're going to have to be talking about the boy. I would say that there is essentially no sub DPS that can be like run optimally without at least one boundary. Without at least one. So if you are the biggest White Ichigo fan in the world, what you might want to consider is not pulling any dupes whatsoever on Grimjo, even if you get lucky. Even if the moment you go on Grimjo's banner, you use that first 1600 they're giving out for completely free, you go bang 10 pulls on Grimjo and you get them in that 10 pull, you might not want to go more. Even though you might be tempted to. The difference that specifically SubDPSs get out of their Boundary 1, and we have 3 instances of this, 3 limited instances of this. In fact, you could even say 4, because even Komomura has a crazy Boundary 1. This character right here, the big dog himself, even he has a crazy Boundary 1. And I would just say that if you're going to hedge for anything, if you're really considering I need to skip Grimjo or whatever, just remember that in reality, the only character you'll really want to get a dupe of most times are these sub-DPSs. I mean, look at all of this fucking text that NLL has, during which all battlefield skills deal 50% increased damage, and all characters in the team gain 20% more thrust damage. She also, by the way, this is the one that gives her 3 points immediately when pressing her ult, which means that her rotations with her ultimate become essentially looping, like no brain loops of like her ultimate because of this Boundary 1. Boundary 2, I will say, is her crazy boundary, but that brings us to another thing, which is the Boundary 2 is pretty sketch. So we've got Boundary 1 for Soifon, which reduces her ult cooldown by 10 whole seconds and gives her 100% ult charge rate and gives her 15% crit rate. Very important for the character. Very important for the character. Over here, she gets all skill mastery 40%, which, by the way, is pretty good. That is pretty good. I'm not going to say like, oh, it's like nothing. And then over here, we have the similar thing with Aizen, which is all characters in the team deal 20% more spirit damage. A step down. A step down from this one, which is actually the one that makes him come alive, right? This one right here makes him come alive. I would say that because of this like little pattern, because we're talking free to play, so far we have 3 instances of this. So far, the characters that want a cheeky dupe the most for free to play and low spending players have been sub-DPSs free. Now, let us talk a little bit about Okieta, who again is going to be taxing you a little bit if you want to make a decision. So I am fully expecting Half-Anni Pantera Grimjo to want 1 or 2 dupes to really shine. DPS units though, the main DPS units, we have things like Fearless Demon, Sever, which is 30% damage, pretty good. But you know what is like B4 for this character? Getting a crit and becoming a solo DPS, right? We compare that to, again, Geen, you know, we go over here, Impale damage increases by 100%. That's meaningful, that's really meaningful. But again, you know, we go over here, and whenever a teammate triggers a counterattack, Nell's crit rate and critical damage are increased by 20% and 40% respectively. You know what I mean? Like, these characters, these sub-DPSs, really start exploding. Really start exploding. Like 20% strike resistance decrease, right? They really start exploding. So I will say that I think that White Ichigo Zangetsu is going to be the character that if you want to get dupes in, or if you want to skip stuff for, I would say the DPSs you pull 1 of at least, and then hedge your bets for pulling at least 1 extra copy of Zangetsu. Because guess what? I think a lot of the DPSs kind of just stop really immediately. I mean, Toshido is a good example. Toshido wants his Boundary 2, just like Kenpachi would like his Boundary 2, but that's about it. Right? That's about it. I think DPS has really come alive at Boundary 6. I mean, this is a crazy Boundary 6. You could say this for most characters, of course. Geen doesn't really come up. This Boundary 6 is fucking insane as well. It turns Geen into basically like an ailment dealing character who also deals like incredible strike. We can go over here. increases all damage by 150%. Again, a flat boost, but then you see like boundary 6, and his build-up stacks become absolutely insane. So around here is where the DPSs tend to shine. But it is a little random, because I wouldn't say that like boundary 1 is worth it for Gin in terms of like comparing it to like a SubDPS's boundary 1. But if you really wanted him, you would go to boundary 2. I guess this is like a long-winded way of saying that if you're a free-to-play player, it is really easy to get a lot out of a boundary 1 SubDPS, but boundary 2 SubDPSs are really where they start to shine. Our boundary 2 like main DPSs are really when they start to shine most of the time, and it's just not realistic. I mean, this is a great example of like Kenpachi having one of the rare, really powerful main DPS boundary 1s. But even then, we look at his boundary 2, and it's like this completely changes like his kit. I mean, it means you run like a crit damage here, it means you run ailment here, you get more, like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's very different. It's very different for him. And in fact, what he ends up wanting is weapon stamp dupes. And we could see that even in a character like Gin. You get a weapon stamp dupe for him, and, you know, suddenly you can go up to like 30% crit rate on his passive, which means that, you know, instead of my Gin being 71%, which goes up to 86%, he could be damn near 100%. Right? So I don't know. I think... Again, this is just going to be a follow-up video to the one I posted earlier today. If you're thinking to yourself, I want to skip half anniversary Grimjo entirely, which I think is fucking crazy, by the way. Because guess what? This character right here in front of you was our only other major celebration character. And I think you could still argue she's top 1. I think in a vacuum, Aizen is now the best character in the game again because of his buffs. But the team that is the best is still Thrust for now. And so long as Thrust remains top 1, like best team, because of all of its like synergistic elements, I don't think Nellel can really be like consistently argued down. If you say Aizen is the best, I'll be like, okay, like in a vacuum. But if you want to start talking best team, it's this girl right here. And guess what? That's the Half-Anni character. Or that's the Chinese New Year character, right? Sorry. Chinese New Year character. So I do think that Grimjo is going to be in that level where it's like, I don't expect Kenpachi to touch him at B0. I don't expect Gin to really touch him at B0. Gin might still look really good because he just has a better team, a complete team right here. But I don't expect Toshido to touch him at B0, Bankai Ichigo to touch him at B0. You know, I expect it to be really obvious that Grimjo is the best full assault character in the game. At B0, maybe even at B1 and 2, just period. And then the downside will probably just be his team. He still doesn't have an SSR support, so he'll probably just end up having to use like a Mayuri, end up having to use a Yudahara, right? So that'll be his like cross to bear essentially. But yeah, I don't know. That is a quick overview. Maybe he'll have to use like an Giku or something like that. But that's a quick overview. I just want to say that if you're planning on skipping Grimjo, most DPSs are just good enough at B0, man. They are. I mean, Gin at B0. I mean, the reason I'm not using Toshido more is because I didn't pull his weapon. My B0 Toshido is good. Like, he'd be good if he had his weapon, right? Like, 51% crit rate. Look at my stamps. It's like, this is all from stamps. If he gets his you know, his weapon stamp, which we're gonna get for free, by the way. I'm using this character like every day again. He's coming back. Like, I'm gonna make a showcase because I'll finally be able to use this character, and he's gonna be great. I think this character is going to be great at B0. Mind you, again, his final point, I do think this is his best form, and it's like, this would make him really crazy. But even without it, I think he's good enough. Gin, I've had no problem with. Gin has been an absolute monster the entire time. 200% ailment, 86% crit, a bit of crit damage. I don't really think B1 is the one he would want, like, need. If you got B2, you probably have a really strong Gin. but I've never felt like B0 Geen could not clear content. So that's just me. But you know who I think makes it so you clear content if you get a Suvu? So it's this guy over here. It's this guy over here. If you get some dupes from this guy, suddenly you're clearing everything. If you get a B1 dupe here or a B4 dupe here, that since he's rerun a billion times, you know, he starts looking pretty good. This girl here, like, pretty good at B0, but I mean, she 80% crit damage. I don't know. This is a little talking head video. I'm just gonna post this on the same day as the previous one. That way, this doesn't feel like just me, you know, throwing out a talking head video for like a day after. So yeah. I've been Lone though. Like if you like the video, subscribe to the club, we'll go make it, and peace.